Episode 1, Making Sense of German History. Any and all information covered in this audiobook originated from the second chapter of the first Germany booklet. Geography. Germany has no natural borders. Natural borders are things like rivers, mountain ranges, and seas, which make a country easy to defend, like Britain. This meant that German politicians and military leaders were always anxious about invasion. Countries without natural borders are easy to invade and often advocated aggressive defenses. They worried about encirclements, being surrounded by major powers, Russia, Austria, Hungary and France on land and Britain at sea. Germany's geography and the political anxieties it created in its leaders remained important in our period. Prussia. Germany as one country was formed by a series of wars and economic changes leading up to 1871. Before that, Germany was not a country. It was just an area of Europe, like the British Isles or the Balkans. The dominant force in unification was Prussia. At the start of the 19th century, this was a small agricultural kingdom, but economic change and military reform transformed its status. Between 1871 and 1888, Frederick I was Kaiser. Between 1888 1918, Wilhelm I was Kaiser. That's why it's sometimes called Wilhelmine Germany, Germany in the age of Wilhelm. Even after unification, lots of the other states like Saxony, Bavaria, Baden-Württemberg, and Braunschweig kept their royal families, dukes and local parliaments. But above them stood the Reich government. Furthermore, lots of German speakers were outside Germany in Austria, Bohemia, and even in present-day Russia, Poland, Lithuania, and Estonia. Prussia dominated Germany politically. The Kaiser, Wilhelm II, was also King of Prussia, and religiously. Prussia was mostly Protestant. Most of the other states were Catholic. Prussian dominance, and the ways it had achieved that dominance through high-tech industry and military force created many tensions in Germany, which spilled over into our period. Economy. Germany had industrialized rapidly in this period. It was particularly dominant in the new high-tech industries of the 1890s and 1900s. Cars, electrical goods, plastics, new chemicals like fertilizers, medicines. This technical advance was underpinned by a world-leading education system. Germans were highly educated. It had large amounts of iron and coal in the far west, in the Rhine province and Alsace, Lorraine along the French border. It was a world leader in high-quality steel. Industrial growth in this period averaged 8% per annum. A transformative rate. However, German agriculture was dominated by conservative Prussian aristocrats called Junkers, and agricultural production did not grow quickly. The agricultural population was often desperately poor and tied to the land on Junker estates. The tension between countryside and city, agriculture and industry, Junkers and workers, was to have profound consequences. Ethnic and religious diversity. The Kaiserreich was a multi-ethnic empire. That is to say, it was assembled gradually over time by alliances and conquests. There were many Jews, Poles, French speakers, Danish, Czechs, Slovaks, and Dutch speakers. Even within Germany, many Germans identified more with their local ruler of their state than the German Empire. Roughly 2/3 of Germans were Protestant, mostly in the north and mostly in Prussia. About 1/3 of German citizens, they were often Polish and French in identity as well as German, were Catholics. The Prussian leadership had persecuted Catholics in the 1870s and 1880s, accusing them of being loyal to a foreign power, the Pope in Rome, and not real Germans. So ethnic identity and religious identity set up many social, political, and cultural conflicts in Germany. Bavaria was a major state in Germany, which was the most progressive politically. It had a liberal government which tolerated a wider range of political views than Prussia. Its government was dominated by the Catholic Centre Party, the Zentrum, which emphasized social and educational reform within Catholic values. It advocated lower spending on the military and respect for its traditional ruling house, the Wittelsbachs. the existence of one dominant Protestant state, Prussia, and one important but weak and Catholic state, Bavaria, set up lots of conflicts within the German political system. The Kaiser, Wilhelm, i.e. is perhaps the most important Kaiser in our period, 1888-1918. He was a foolish, inflexible, pompous, argumentative man. While other economically and politically developed countries, like Britain, France and the USA, had broadly accepted that it was the people that chose the government, while the monarch or president ensured that it functioned responsibly, Well insisted that it was he who chose the government. The Reichstag, Parliament, could only advise him, and the only thing the Reichstag could really control was the amount of money the Kaiser's government could raise in taxes. Austria. For hundreds of years, Austria, called Austria-Hungary in our time period, had been the dominant power in Europe. Millions of Catholic Germans lived in Austria-Hungary. However, through ruthless reforms of its army and more rapid development of its high-tech industrial economy, Prussia had displaced Austria's role as the dominant German power. The existence of Austria-Hungary, still in a multi-ethnic empire, set up all sorts of conflicts around Catholicism, Protestantism. Militarism, Protestantism. Militarism from peaceful coexistence. Society. German society was highly urbanized, despite the influence of the Junkers. It was also highly educated. The German school system was excellent for both boys and girls, rich and poor. Society was also changing fast. Migration from countryside to city was happening at breakneck pace, and new classes of workers, administrators, and civil servants were emerging. The new middle classes were in conflict with the working classes and aristocracy. The aristocracy was in conflict with the middle classes and new working classes, and the working classes were in conflict with the aristocracy and middle classes. Culture. Germans believed that their poetry, literature, and above all, philosophy dominated European culture. And they were right. Immanuel Kant, Friedrich Nietzsche, Arthur Schopenhauer, Friedrich Schelling, George Hegel, and Karl Marx dominated European thinking in this period, and indeed up to our own. Middle-class and aristocratic Germans prized this tradition and were scornful of ordinaries and popular cultures. This set up a powerful cultural conflict that were to be played out in our time period. Politics. There were two layers of government in Germany: the Reich, the whole of Germany, and the Länder. States. The Reichstag represented all men in the country. It was dominated by the Social Democratic Party, the SPD, the Zentrum Catholic Centre Party, the Left Progressive Liberals, and the Nationalist Liberals. The SDF was a moderate party in practice, but spoke with communist revolutionary rhetoric, scaring many people off. It was the largest party in the Reichstag. The Zentrum was moderate and centrist, generally advocating a peaceful foreign policy and gradual social reform, but it was only popular in Catholic areas. The left progressive liberals and nationalist liberals represented the middle classes and were small parties. Left liberals were fairly progressive. Nationalist liberals emphasized free trade, but also imperial expansion and growing the army and navy budgets. For the Reichstag, all males could vote, and the SP was the largest party. But for elections to the states, Länder, and cities, the electoral system was highly distorted to ensure that liberals did well. Most spending on important things, apart from the military, was done by states and cities, which meant that it was controlled by the liberals. This meant that the parties of the middle classes, the liberals mainly, were used to a high degree of power, but without necessarily the broadest democratic base. Even for the Reichstag, where all men could vote and so the Speer did well, the Kaiser did not pick his government from any of these groups. He generally chose Junkers and other aristocrats who were very conservative, highly nationalist, and pursued aggressive foreign policy.